Get out! A barren woman has no place in this house. Get out! The crystal decanter sailed across the room, narrowly missing Liana Voss's head by inches before exploding against the granite wall into thousands of sparkling shards. Get out! Get out! Her mother-in-law sneered from the doorway. Her husband stood there watching. He did nothing. They called her worthless. They branded her a failure. And then they shoved her into the storm. What none of them realized was this. The woman they had just discarded wasn't weak. She wasn't powerless. She was the sister of a billionaire who knew exactly who to call when lines were crossed. And when he made that call, he didn't ask for justice. He summoned Korea's most dangerous man, Kang Ji-hoon. Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories TV. Besties, I bring you another heart-pounding story that will leave you breathless. If you want to see how Liana rises from the ashes and makes everyone who wronged her regret it, make sure you stay until the very end. The rain fell in relentless sheets, turning everything into a blur of grey and cold. Liana Voss stood on the doorstep of what had been her home for 3 years. Her designer dress, the one she'd worn to their anniversary dinner just last week, now clung to her body, soaked through by the downpour. Water streamed from her dark curls, mixing with tears she refused to acknowledge. 3 years, Mrs. Kwon spat from the doorway, her perfectly manicured hands gripping a trash bag containing the few things they'd allowed Liana to take. 3 years and not even a pregnancy to show for it. Useless. Behind his mother, Kwon Min-seok stood with his arms crossed, his handsome face carved from stone. The man who had promised her forever now watched her being thrown out with the same indifference he'd show a housekeeper being fired. Liana's fingers trembled as she reached for the bag, but Mrs. Kwon yanked it back. Actually, you know what? You don't deserve even this. The older woman dumped the contents onto the wet pavement. A few photographs, some jewelry Min-seok had given her before they married. Her laptop, the clothes, the shoes, the handbags, those stay. You came with nothing. You leave with nothing. Liana's laptop crashed onto the concrete, the screen shattering. 3 years of building Min-seok's startup from scratch, creating their entire cybersecurity infrastructure. And this was her reward. She'd given up her position at her father's company, walked away from a 7-figure salary, all because Min-seok had convinced her that love was worth more than money. Min-seok, she said softly, her voice steady despite the storm raging both outside and inside her chest. Is this really what you want? For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, perhaps, or the ghost of what they'd once shared. Then his jaw hardened. My family needs an heir, Liana. You've had every test, every treatment. It's time to accept reality. Reality? A bitter laugh escaped her lips. The reality where you've been sleeping with your secretary for the past 8 months? That reality? His face flushed, but he didn't deny it. Of course he didn't. She'd known about Ji-hoon for months, had smelled her perfume on his shirts, found her lipstick on his collar. But she'd stayed convinced that if she could just give him a child, he'd remember why he'd married her. Get off our property, Mrs. Kwon commanded, already turning back toward the warmth of the house. Before I call the police. Liana bent down, rain streaming off her back, and picked up her broken laptop and the photographs. Not of her and Min-seok, but of her real family, the ones she distanced herself from because Min-seok had been threatened by their wealth, their power, their influence. Her fingers closed around her phone, miraculously intact despite the fall. She dialed the number she'd sworn little sis. Darius Voss's deep voice filled. No, she said some 7 minutes later. You're Liana, the Ji-hoon. His fingers were warm against her frozen skin, and she found herself staring at the contrast, his tan skin against her darker tone, the careful way he held her hand like it was something precious. 3 years, she heard herself say. 3 years I gave them everything. My career, my family, my... She stopped, mortified to find tears sliding down her cheeks. Your ex-husband is Kwon Min-seok, Ji-hoon said, his voice carrying a note of something dangerous. The one with the failing tech startup. She looked up sharply. How do you... I make it my business to know things, he said. His thumb brushed against her wrist and she realized he was checking her pulse. Especially, the rest of the ride passed in relative silence. Ji-hoon occasionally murmuring instructions to the driver in rapid Korean. Liana understood every word. Another thing Min-seok hadn't known about her, that she'd been fluent in Korean long before she'd met him. Her father had insisted all his children learn multiple languages. The convoy pulled up to a building she recognized immediately. Voss Tower, the crown jewel of her father's real estate empire. The penthouse had been Darius's for the past 5 years, ever since their father had decided his eldest son needed to learn responsibility. Darius was waiting in the lobby, and the moment she stepped out of the car, he was there, pulling her into an embrace that smelled of cologne and cigars and home. "I'm going to destroy him," he said quietly, the words a promise rather than a threat. Min-seok, his mother, their entire family. "No," Liana said, pulling back to look at her brother. Even at 3 in the morning, Darius looked immaculate in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, his dark skin glowing under the lobby's warm lights. "I don't want revenge. I just want to forget." Darius's jaw clenched, but he nodded. His eyes shifted to Ji-hoon, who had followed them inside. "Thank you for getting her." "Of course." Ji-hoon's eyes found hers one more time, and that flutter in her chest intensified. "Get some rest." "Liana, tomorrow will be better." It was a promise he had no right to make from a man she'd known for all of 20 minutes. But somehow, looking into those dark eyes, she almost believed him. The next morning arrived too soon. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows she'd forgotten existed. The penthouse guest room was bigger than the entire apartment she'd lived in before marrying Min-seok, decorated in soft creams and golds that complemented her complexion perfectly. Darius had always known her taste. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Liana, you decent. Come in," she called, sitting up against the silk pillows. Darius entered carrying a tray with coffee, fresh fruit, and pastries from her favorite bakery. Behind him, a woman in a sharp business suit wheeled in a rack of clothes. "Figured you'd need some things," he said, setting the tray on the bedside table. "Elena here will help you pick out whatever you want." "No arguments," Dad already called. "He's transferring your trust fund back to your direct control, and he wants you back at the company by Monday." "Darius, Chief Cybersecurity Officer," he continued, ignoring her interruption. "The position's been waiting for you." "Ji-hoon? Yes, that Ji-hoon, your husband's side piece, apparently applied for it last month." Dad laughed in her face. Despite everything, Liana found herself smiling. He did not. He absolutely did. Then he had security escort her out. Darius's grin was wicked. He never liked Min-seok. "You know, none of us did." She picked at a croissant, her appetite non-existent. "You could have said something. Would you have listened?" He sat on the edge of the bed, his expression softening. "You were so convinced you'd found something real. Someone who loved you for you, not for Dad's money or influence. Instead, he just wanted me to disappear into his shadow." The bitterness in her voice surprised her. "Do you know I haven't touched a computer professionally in 2 years?" He said it made him feel inadequate. Darius's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. "Speaking of your ex, he's already spinning stories, claiming you were unfaithful. That's why he had to kick you out." Liana's coffee cup rattled against the saucer. "What? Don't worry. Ji-hoon's handling it." "Ji-hoon? Why would he?" "Because I asked him to." Darius stood, buttoning his jacket. "And because for some reason, after one car ride, he seems personally invested in making sure your reputation remains intact." Heat crept up her neck. "He was just being kind." "Ji-hoon doesn't do kind," Darius said, heading for the door. "He does calculated, strategic, and occasionally ruthless. But kind, that's new." After he left, Liana let Eleanor help her choose several outfits. Sleek pantsuits, elegant dresses, designer jeans that actually fit her curves properly. It felt like playing dress-up, like pretending to be someone she used to be. Her phone, charging on the nightstand, lit up with messages. Most she ignored. Min-seok's family, mutual friends who'd already chosen sides. But one made her pause. Unknown number. "The story has been corrected. Your ex-husband's family will find their own scandals making headlines soon enough. Rest well. KJ, Kang Ji-hoon." She shouldn't have saved his number. Shouldn't have felt that flutter when his next message came through an hour later. A photo of a rain-soaked handkerchief and the words, "This is yours now. Consider it a promise that not all men are faithless." The following Monday, Liana walked into Voss Industries wearing a black power suit that hugged every curve, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo, her mother's diamond earrings catching the light. The lobby went silent as she passed, whispers following in her wake. "Is that the CEO's daughter? I heard she was back. Min Seok must be kicking himself." The executive elevator was waiting, programmed to recognize her biometrics even after 3 years. As the doors closed, she caught sight of herself in the mirrored walls and barely recognized the woman staring back. Gone was the submissive wife who dimmed her light to make her husband comfortable. This woman looked like she could conquer kingdoms. The cybersecurity department occupied the entire 32nd floor, a maze of high-tech equipment and brilliant minds. Her office, the corner suite with views of the Han River, had been preserved exactly as she'd left it. Even her coffee mug still sat on the desk, though someone had been keeping it dust-free. "Welcome back, boss." She spun to find Marcus Lee, her former second-in-command, grinning at her from the doorway. "Marcus, you're still here. Where else would I go?" He entered, carrying a tablet. "Your father made it clear this position was yours whenever you wanted it back. I've just been keeping it warm. Speaking of which, we have a situation." She fell back into work like she'd never left, her fingers flying across keyboards, her mind dissecting code and vulnerabilities with an ease that felt like breathing. It was past 7 when she finally looked up, realizing she'd missed lunch entirely. A soft knock interrupted her concentration. A delivery man stood in her doorway, holding an elaborate bouquet. White orchids with a single black rose in the center. Liana Voss. She nodded, accepting the flowers with confusion. The card was simple, elegant, even queens need to eat. Check your desk drawer, your guardian's shadow. Her heart skipped as she opened her top drawer to find it filled with her favorite snacks, ones she hadn't even realized she'd been craving. How had he known? How had he gotten them delivered without her noticing? "Secret admirer," Marcus asked, peeking around the doorframe. "Something like that," she murmured, fingering the black rose. It was an unusual choice, but somehow perfect. Beauty with an edge of danger. Her phone buzzed. "Darius, family dinner. 8 p.m. Don't be late." The Voss family dinners were legendary affairs, held in her father's private dining room at the top of Voss Tower. What Darius hadn't mentioned was that it wouldn't just be family. Ji-hoon stood by the window when she arrived, his back to the room as he spoke quietly into his phone in Korean. He wore all black, suit, shirt, and tie, and somehow made it look like armor. When he turned and their eyes met, that now familiar flutter intensified into something closer to an earthquake. Liana, her mother Ilara, swept across the room in a burst of color and warmth, pulling her into an embrace that smelled of shea butter and home. "My baby, you look beautiful. You're glowing." "I'm really not," Liana said. But her mother was already examining her with the critical eye of someone who'd raised 4 children. "You're healing," Ilara pronounced. "And about time. That boy was beneath you." "Mom, what? I'm supposed to pretend I didn't know he was worthless?" Her Nigerian accent thickened with emotion. 3 years I held my tongue. Your father held his tongue. Even Darius." "Actually, I didn't hold my tongue," Darius interjected, appearing with drinks. "I called him a spineless leech multiple times." "To his face," Liana asked, "once last Christmas." He cried. Despite herself, she laughed. The sound seemed to draw Ji-hoon's attention, his dark eyes tracking to her with an intensity that made her skin warm. Dinner was a carefully orchestrated dance. Her father, Reginald Voss, commanded the head of the table with the quiet authority of a man who'd built an empire from nothing. Her younger siblings, twins Zara and Theo, kept the conversation light with stories from university, but Liana couldn't ignore the undercurrent of tension. The way Ji-hoon and Darius seemed to be having an entire conversation through glances alone. It wasn't until dessert that she understood why. "So, Ji-hoon," her father said casually, too casually, "Darius tells me you've been helpful with Liana's situation." "It was nothing," Ji-hoon replied, his voice giving nothing away. "Destroying a man's reputation, exposing his family's corruption, and ensuring my daughter's name remains untarnished is hardly nothing." Reginald's eyes glinted with something dangerous. "I appreciate it. We appreciate it." Liana's fork clattered against her plate. "You did what?" Ji-hoon's eyes met hers steadily. "What needed to be done? The Kwon family has been laundering money through that startup for years," Darius added. "Ji-hoon just made sure the right people found out. That's not—" She stood abruptly. "I need air." The rooftop garden was an oasis of green in the midst of Seoul's concrete jungle. Liana stood at the railing, looking out at the city lights, trying to process everything. She'd wanted to move on, not destroy Min-seok entirely. "You're angry." She didn't turn at Ji-hoon's voice. "You had no right. He was spreading lies about you." He moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtly spicy. "Claiming you'd cheated, that you'd been unable to have children because of STDs from your supposed affairs." Her hands gripped the railing tighter. "So you destroyed his entire family." "I revealed the truth. There's a difference." His voice softened. "They've been stealing from their investors for years, Liana. Your dowry money, the funds your father invested as a wedding gift, gone. Spent on his mistresses and his mother's shopping sprees." She turned to face him then and found him closer than expected. "Why do you care?" Something flickered in his eyes, a vulnerability quickly masked. "Darius asked me to—" "No," she interrupted. "Darius asked you to pick me up that night. This is something else. Why do you care what happens to me?" For a long moment, he was silent. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, "Because I know what it's like to have someone dim your light. And yours is too bright to be hidden." The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Work during the day, where she slowly reclaimed her confidence and reputation, evenings with her family, rebuilding connections she'd let atrophy, and throughout it all, the gifts. They appeared at random. Flowers on her desk, her favorite coffee waiting at her usual cafe, books she'd mentioned wanting to read arriving by courier. Never signed, but she knew. The black rose always gave him away. "You're being courted," Zara announced one evening, sprawled across Liana's bed while she got ready for another family dinner. "I'm being stalked," Liana corrected, but her heart wasn't in the protest. "By one of the most powerful men in Seoul." Zara's eyes gleamed with interest. "Do you know what they call him?" "The Shadow Sovereign. He controls half the city's underground tech network. He's Darius's friend," Liana said, "and there are rules, codes. You don't date your friend's sister." Zara snorted. "Please. Have you seen how he looks at you? That man would burn down the entire city if you asked." The dinner that night was smaller, just Darius, Ji-hoon and herself at a private restaurant overlooking the river. Darius excused himself after the appetizers, claiming an urgent call, leaving them alone. "He's not subtle," Liana said, watching her brothers retreating back. "He's worried about you." Ji-hoon leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You've been pushing yourself too hard. I'm fine. You had a panic attack yesterday." She froze. "How did you—" "Marcus called Darius." "Darius called me." "And what?" "You're my keeper now. I'm your friend if you'll let me be, friend." Such a simple word for whatever this was between them, this pull, this tension, this sense that the world shifted whenever he was near. "I don't think I'm ready for friends," she said honestly. "I don't trust my judgment anymore. Then trust mine." He leaned forward, his hand almost touching hers on the table. "I see you, Liana. The real you. The brilliant woman who built her ex-husband's company from nothing. The racer who dominates underground circuits as the Frost Sovereign." Her blood turned cold. "How do you know about that?" A smile tugged at his lips, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "I make it my business to know everything about the people who matter. I don't matter." "You do," he said softly. "To me." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. "What is it?" "Your ex-husband is at Voss Industries. Security is holding him in the lobby." She was moving before she'd made the conscious decision, Ji-hoon beside her as they raced back to the building. Min-seok stood in the lobby, disheveled and desperate, being held back by security guards. Liana, he spotted her, his eyes wild. "Please, you have to call them off. Your family, your connections, they're destroying everything." "I haven't done anything," she said coolly, though her heart raced. "Your brother then, or him." Min Seok's eyes landed on Ji-hoon with pure hatred, the Shadow Sovereign. Everyone knows he's been protecting you. You need to leave, Ji-hoon said, his voice deadly quiet. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, Liana corrected. The papers were filed this morning. Min Seok's face crumpled. Liana, please, I made a mistake. We can try again. Get treatment. With what money? Ji-hoon asked casually. Your accounts are frozen, your assets seized. You're facing fraud charges that will put you away for 20 years minimum. Who did this? Min Seok snarled, lunging at Ji-hoon. The movement was so fast Liana almost missed it. One moment Min Seok was attacking, the next he was on the ground, Ji-hoon's foot on his chest. Touch her again, Ji-hoon said softly. Come near her again. Even think about her again, and fraud charges will be the least of your concerns. Security dragged Min Seok out, his threats and pleading echoing through the lobby. Liana stood frozen, processing what had just happened. Ji-hoon hadn't been protecting himself. He'd moved when Min Seok had stepped toward her. You're shaking, Ji-hoon said, his hand hovering near her elbow, not quite touching. I'm angry, she corrected, though she wasn't sure if it was true. 3 years of my life wasted. Not wasted, he said. His hand finally made contact, steadying her. You're stronger now, am I? She looked up at him, finding his face closer than expected. Because right now I feel like I'm falling apart. Then let me catch you. The words were barely a whisper, but they hit her like a physical force. This was dangerous, this feeling, this pull toward him. She'd just gotten out of one relationship. She couldn't afford to fall into another. But looking into his dark eyes, seeing the sincerity there, the careful control hiding something deeper, she wondered if maybe she was already falling. Her phone rang, breaking the moment. Nadia's name flashed on the screen. Her racing friend, the only one who knew all her secrets. Frost Sovereign, Nadia's voice was urgent. We have a problem. Someone's been asking about you at the tracks. Korean guy, expensive suit, lots of questions. Liana's blood ran cold. Did he give a name? Park something. Said he was your husband. She met Ji-hoon's eyes. Min Seok knows about the racing. His expression hardened. Then we need to get you somewhere safe. No, she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. I'm done running. Done hiding. If he wants to expose me, let him. Liana, there's a race tonight, Nadia continued. Underground high stakes. If Min Seok wants to find the Frost Sovereign, then that's exactly who he'll get. Seoul's underground racing scene existed in the shadows between legitimate and illegal. A world of modified cars, dangerous speeds, and even more dangerous people. Liana had discovered it by accident during her marriage, stumbling upon a race while driving aimlessly one night after another fight with Min Seok. She'd won her first race in her designer heels and cocktail dress, shocking everyone who'd assumed the pretty rich girl would crash and burn. The name Frost Sovereign had stuck, partly for her cold precision behind the wheel, partly for the way she'd disappear after each victory, collecting her winnings and vanishing like smoke. Now, standing in the warehouse that served as tonight's staging ground, she felt more at home than she had in 3 years. Her racing leathers fit like a second skin, her hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, her favorite helmet tucked under her arm. You sure about this? Nadia asked, her Nigerian accent thick with worry. She'd been Liana's friend since childhood, the only one who'd known about the racing, about the separate bank account, about the escape plan that had never quite materialized. He wants to expose me anyway, Liana said, checking her gloves. Might as well control the narrative and your shadow. Nadia nodded toward the entrance where Ji-hoon stood, looking dangerously out of place in his expensive suit among the street racers and modified cars. He insisted on coming. And you let him because she couldn't explain the way her heart had raced when he'd said he wouldn't let her face this alone, because the thought of him watching her race sent adrenaline through her veins that had nothing to do with speed. He's Darius's friend, she said instead. Nadia laughed. Girl, that man is looking at you like you're water, and he's been dying of thirst, friend my ass. Before Liana could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Min Seok had arrived, and he wasn't alone. His sister, Kwon Soo-jin, the actress with the perfect image and rotten core, flanked him on one side. On the other, Ji-eun, other secretary he'd been sleeping with. Well, well, Sujin's voice carried across the warehouse. The perfect wife isn't so perfect after all. Liana straightened, pulling on her helmet. I never claimed to be perfect. No, you just pretended to be helpless, Min Seok spat. Poor Baron Liana, crying herself to sleep every night. Meanwhile you were here, racing illegally, probably meeting men. Careful. Ji-hoon's voice cut through the noise like a blade. He'd moved silently, now standing between Liana and her ex. Slander is still illegal, even in places like this. And what are you going to do about it, Shadow Sovereign? Sujin smirked. Everyone knows your reputation. How many women have you— Finish that sentence, Ji-hoon said softly, and find out why that reputation exists. The temperature in the warehouse seemed to drop. Even the hardened racers stepped back, recognizing a predator when they saw one. The race, Liana said, her voice muffled by the helmet. If you're here to compete, then compete. Otherwise, get out. Min Seok's laugh was ugly. You think you can beat me? I've been racing for years. Then prove it. She moved toward her car. A modified Lexus LFA she'd bought with her first racing winnings, kept hidden in a garage Min Seok never knew existed, unless you're afraid of losing to your barren ex-wife. The crowd reacted to that, whispers and bets already flying. Min Seok's face flushed, his pride backed into a corner. Fine, he snarled. When I win, you come back. Apologize to my mother, to my family. Admit this was all your fault. And when I win, Liana said, starting her engine, the roar drowning out the crowd, you disappear from my life, from Seoul if necessary. You and your entire family cease to exist as far as I'm concerned. Deal. The race route was legendary, through abandoned subway tunnels, up parking garage ramps, across bridges with traffic flowing in the opposite direction. It was dangerous, illegal, and exactly what Liana needed. She pulled up to the starting line, Min Seok beside her in a Porsche 911 that had probably cost more than most people's houses. Through her rearview mirror, she caught sight of Ji-hoon standing with Nadia, his face unreadable. The flag dropped. Liana launched forward, her tires screaming against asphalt, the world narrowing to the road ahead. Min Seok kept pace initially, trying to box her in, but she'd learned these streets, these turns, these hidden shortcuts. They hit the first tunnel doing 190, the walls blurring past. Min Seok tried to overtake on the inside, but Liana knew the debris pattern, the way water collected in certain spots. She let him think he was winning, then watched him fishtail on a patch of oil she'd memorized 3 months ago. Up the parking garage ramp, spiraling higher and higher, engines echoing off concrete. Min Seok was getting desperate now, ramming her rear bumper, trying to spin her out. But the Frost Sovereign had earned her name for a reason. She was untouchable when she raced, cold precision married to raw speed. The final stretch was the bridge, late-night traffic creating a moving obstacle course. This was where racers proved themselves or died trying. Liana wove between cars like water between rocks, her movements fluid, instinctive. In her mirrors, she saw Min Seok falling behind, his nerve failing as a truck honked and swerved. She crossed the finish line a full 45 seconds ahead, the crowd erupting, but she didn't stop for celebration, pulling straight into her garage bay where Nadia was waiting. That was— Nadia shook her head, grinning. Girl, you just destroyed him. Liana pulled off her helmet, adrenaline still singing through her veins. Where is he? Your ex throwing a tantrum near his car, but your shadow— Nadia nodded toward the corner where Ji-hoon stood, his dark eyes fixed on Liana with an expression she couldn't read. He hasn't moved since you started racing. I don't think he even blinked. She walked over to him, still in her racing leathers, hair mussed from the helmet. You disapprove? Disapprove? His voice was rough. Liana, that was— He stopped, seeming to search for words. You were magnificent. Heat that had nothing to do with the race flooded through her. It's illegal. So are most of the things I do. He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. You've been hiding this part of yourself. Min Seok is an idiot who couldn't recognize a goddess if she was standing right in front of him, which she was. Besties. If you're loving Liana's transformation from rejected wife to unstoppable queen, We need your help to hit 1,000 subscribers so we can keep bringing you these powerful stories. Drop a comment below. If you could summon anyone to handle your ex's drama, would it be a billionaire brother or a mafia boss? Let's see those creative answers and smash that like button. His hand came up, hovering near her cheek, not quite touching. The moment stretched between them, taut with tension. Then chaos erupted behind them. Min Seok, drunk on rage and humiliation, had pulled a knife. "If I can't have you," he screamed, charging toward them. Ji-hoon moved like lightning, spinning Liana behind him while simultaneously disarming Min Seok with a move that looked effortless, but left her ex-husband screaming on the ground, clutching his broken wrist. "That's twice," Ji-hoon said calmly, his foot on Min Seok's chest. "There won't be a third time." Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called them, probably one of Min Seok's people trying to get the race shut down. But Ji-hoon was already on his phone, speaking rapidly in Korean. "We need to go," he said to Liana. "Now." She didn't argue, letting him guide her to his car while Nadia handled her racing vehicle. As they pulled away, she saw Min Seok being loaded into a police car, his sister screaming about lawsuits and connections that no longer existed. "Your people?" Liana asked as they merged into traffic. "The police? No, but I have an understanding with certain departments. Your ex just violated his restraining order." "Yes, I filed one on your behalf, and attacked you with a deadly weapon in front of 40 witnesses. You filed a restraining order for me." He glanced at her, something soft flickering in his eyes. "I file a lot of things for you. Your divorce papers were expedited, your assets unfrozen, your racing winnings legally laundered through legitimate investments. Ji-hoon, you needed to be free," he said simply, "completely free." They drove in silence for a while, Seoul's lights blurring past. Finally, she asked, "Where are we going?" "My place. Darius will meet us there." His penthouse was nothing like she'd expected. Instead of the cold modern aesthetic favored by most wealthy Korean men, it was warm, filled with books and art, photographs from travels she couldn't even identify. "You read," she said, running her fingers along the spines of first editions, voraciously. He handed her a glass of wine, their fingers brushing. "It's how I learned about the world beyond Seoul's underground. Is that what you want? A world beyond this?" He studied her for a long moment. "I thought I did. Then I met you." Before she could respond, Darius arrived, bursting through the door like a storm. "What the hell were you thinking?" He grabbed Liana's shoulders, checking her for injuries. "Racing tonight with Min Seok there." "I'm fine. You could have been killed." "But I wasn't." She pulled away from her brother, exhausted suddenly. "I won. I faced him. It's over." "Is it?" Darius turned on Ji-hoon. "You were supposed to protect her." "I did. You let her race." "I let her choose." Ji-hoon's voice was steel. "Something you might consider trying." The tension between the two men crackled. Liana stepped between them. "Stop. Both of you. I'm not a prize to be fought over, or a child to be protected. I'm a grown woman who makes her own choices. Your choices nearly got you stabbed tonight," Darius snapped. "No," Liana said firmly. "Min Seok's choices nearly got me stabbed. There's a difference." Her brother deflated slightly. "Liana, I know. You're worried. I know you feel guilty for not protecting me from him before. But I need to stand on my own feet now." Darius pulled her into a hug. "I just got you back. I can't lose you again. You won't." She hugged him back, then pulled away. "But you need to trust me, and you need to trust Ji-hoon." Her brother's eyes narrowed as he looked between them, understanding dawning. "Something's happening here." "Darius, no." He stepped back, shaking his head. "No, this isn't happening. Ji-hoon, we talked about this. My sisters are off limits. We haven't done anything," Liana protested. "Yet," Ji-hoon said quietly. And the single word changed everything. Darius's fist connected with Ji-hoon's jaw before anyone could react. Ji-hoon took the hit, didn't even stumble, just stood there as Darius wound up for another. "Stop." Liana grabbed her brother's arm. "What is wrong with you?" "He's not good for you," Darius said desperately. "Liana, you don't know the things he's done, the life he leads. I know enough. You know nothing." "Tell her," he demanded of Ji-hoon. "Tell her about the bodies, the deals, the women." Ji-hoon's jaw clenched. She knows what she needs to know. The women, then. Tell her about them. How many, Ji-hoon? How many have there been? Something dangerous flickered in Ji-hoon's eyes. That's enough, is it? Because by my count, I said enough. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Yes, there have been women, many women, none of whom mattered beyond the moment, none of whom made me want to be better than what I am. Until now. The confession hung in the air. Liana's heart raced, but before she could speak, Darius laughed bitterly. Pretty words. You're good at those. But what happens when you get bored, when the conquest is complete? There is no conquest, Ji-hoon said, his eyes finding Liana's. There's only her choice. If she wants me to disappear, I will. If she wants me to stay... He trailed off, the sentence unfinished, but the implication clear. This is ridiculous, Darius said. Liana, we're leaving, no. She stood her ground. You're leaving, I'm staying. Her brother's face went through several expressions. Shock, anger, hurt, and finally resignation. When he breaks your heart, then that will be my mistake to make. Darius left, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was deafening. You didn't have to do that, Ji-hoon said softly. Yes, I did. She moved closer to him, noting the bruise already forming on his jaw. Does it hurt? I've had worse. She reached up, her fingers ghosting over the mark. He's right, you know. About you being dangerous? Yes. About the women? Yes. About you eventually getting bored? His hand came up to cover hers, pressing her palm against his face. No, never that. How can you be sure? Because you're not conquerable, Liana. You're a force of nature. A man doesn't conquer a storm. He either survives it or surrenders to it. And which are you doing? Surrendering, he said without hesitation. Completely. The kiss happened slowly, inevitably, like gravity pulling two objects together. His lips were softer than she'd expected, the kiss gentler, as if he was afraid she might disappear. When they pulled apart, her hands were shaking. I should go, she whispered. You should. But his arms were around her waist, holding her close. This is a bad idea. Terrible. He pressed his forehead against hers. Darius will never forgive us. He will, eventually. His thumb traced the line of her jaw. But if you need time, space, I'll give it to you. No pressure, no expectations. She pulled away and he let her go immediately. I need to think. I'll drive you home. I can take a cab, Liana. His voice was gentle but firm. Let me at least do this. The drive to her apartment, she'd moved out of Darius's penthouse the week before, was quiet. When they arrived, Ji-hoon walked her to the door like a perfect gentleman, maintaining careful distance. Good night, Liana. Good night. She was almost inside when his voice stopped her. The flowers will keep coming unless you tell me to stop. She looked back at him, silhouetted against the hallway light. Don't stop. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face. Then I won't. The next 3 weeks were torture of the sweetest kind. True to his word, Ji-hoon gave her space, but his presence was everywhere. In the flowers that arrived daily, in the coffee that appeared on her desk, in the way her favorite songs suddenly played on every radio station she tuned to. At work, she threw herself into a massive security overhaul, uncovering vulnerabilities that made her father's jaw drop. How did we miss this? Reginald Voss demanded during a board meeting. Because the person who designed the breach was very, very good, Liana said, pulling up the code on the screen. It would have allowed complete access to our financial systems. Who? She hesitated, then displayed the digital signature hidden in the code. Ji-eun, Min Seok's secretary. This was planted 6 months ago, right when their she closed the file. But they didn't count on the divorce happening so quickly. Her father's face darkened. I want them prosecuted, already in motion. Ji-hoon's legal team is handling it. Ji-hoon again. Her father studied her. He's been very helpful to our family lately. Heat crept up her neck. He's Darius's friend. Is that all? Before she could answer, Marcus burst in. Boss, we have a problem. Someone's hacking us right now. Liana flew to her terminal, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. The attack was sophisticated, multi-pronged, coming from several locations at once. But there was something familiar about the code. Min-seok. Marcus's eyes widened. From prison? Affirmative. The last line of code? His signature, deleted too quickly. Her pulse accelerated. He's not done. Marcus confirmed it. He's breached the firewall. Financial data exfiltration started. Contain it. Liana deployed countermeasures, activating a honeypot that led the attacker into a digital labyrinth. Minutes later, the IP crashed. Caught. Marcus exhaled. How? Me, Liana said, and Ji-hoon backup. Her phone vibrated. Ji-hoon. Min-seok apprehended. Your work. She stared at the screen. How did he always know? Work ended. Liana went home exhausted but triumphant. New flowers waited, white lilies with one black rose. Card, to victorious queens. Rest. Always your shadow. KJ. Her heart skipped. Nadia called that night. Tracks buzzing, Kwon Soo-jin going on TV. Smear campaign against you. Liana sighed, expected. And Nadia herself. Be careful. Sleepless night. Thoughts turbulent. Morning TV. Soo-jin in studio, teary-eyed. Liana Voss is a monster. Pretending barrenness, illegal racing ruined my family. Liana's anger flared. Lies. Marcus texted, live stream. Respond? No. Ji-hoon handles. Minutes later, Soo-jin's face changed. Split-screen footage. Soo-jin using drugs, plotting fraud on camera. What? Soo-jin screamed. Police stormed the studio, cuffs clicking. Arrested for narcotics fraud. Nationwide shock. Liana laughed. Ji-hoon's revenge swift. Phone. Justice served. For you always. The flutter returned. Next week, Liana's life renewed. Work queen, family reconnected. Ji-hoon presence subtle but constant. One evening, Darius called. Meeting. My penthouse. Tension lingered but shifted. Entry. Ji-hoon and Darius calm, glasses raised. To Liana, Darius said. To Liana, Ji-hoon echoed. Liana teared up. Thank you. Darius hugged her. My first sister. Hurt her, I kill you. Ji-hoon nodded. Deserved. Later, alone with Ji-hoon. Why so much? Love starting. Simple, deep. Second kiss. Full of passion. But Liana pulled back. Still need time. As much as necessary. His patience revered. Meanwhile, racing continued. Underground circuits. Frost Sovereign undefeated. Min-seok jailed. Soo-jin disgraced. Ji-hoon wanted. Post-time bond deepened. Melissa's rescue, from earlier Yakuza threat, marked turning point. Threats neutralized via Ji-hoon's networks. Liana balanced boardrooms and tracks. Innovations patent pending. Family dinners became strategy sessions. Reginald probed Ji-hoon on AI security expansions. Ilara planned wedding blending traditions. Darius joked over whiskey. Break her heart, no shadows save you, I'll drag you to light. Ji-hoon's gifts evolved. Diamond helmet with initials, handwritten vows in racing suit. But cracks appeared. Late-night Korean calls shadowed his eyes. Post-race confrontation in his library amid scrolls and servers. What's haunting you? He revealed past. Botched deal costing lives. Resurfacing Yakuza debts from Voss union shifts. Enemies see you as leverage. Won't touch our future. Liana ignited. Digital traps baited informants. His enforcers silenced preemptively. Busan warehouse raid netted drives linking Kwon remnants to Min-seok prison. Takedown poetic. Liana breached data at Voss Gala. Screens broadcasting confessions live. Min-seok watched helplessly from cell. Soo-jin fleeing, caught at Incheon with cash. Prosecutors hailed her. Headlines, Cyber Queen crushes corruption. Ji-hoon ensured airtight. Victory champagne, terrace aside. Partners now. No secrets. Kiss tasted relief, reignited fire. Bodies exploring deepened by survival. Racing peaked shadow circuit grand, multi-stage through forbidden zones. Favorites in hypercar fusion. Crowds chanted frost and shadow. Rain-slick tunnels dodged sabotage. Final leg, Yakuza Ram. Liana's drifts evaded. Ji-hoon's comms flawless. First by historic margin, trophy amid fireworks. Melissa hugged. Unstoppable. Backstage, Ji-hoon knelt with black diamond ring mirroring roses. Forever, my queen? Eternally, my shadow. Wedding wove joy intensity. Ilara's ancestral fabrics for frost-embroidered gown. Zara Theo guest list to 500. Reginald gifted Jeju Isle honeymoon. Ji-hoon, Voss Shadow Tech joint venture. Darius walked aisle, misty, proud, cis. Vows, from rejection rain to radiant dawn. Reception Afrobeat K-pop fusion dancing dawn. Confetti fell, our empire begins. Final test, Yakuza Summit tribute demand. Ji-hoon solo, Liana remote monitored. Hacked feeds exposed leaders' corruption mid-talk. Alliances flipped. Emerged unscathed, swept her arms. Your mind saved me. Love-making celebratory, harmonious. Rhythm stabilized. Coffee strategizing, industry conquests. Racing ognites entwined. Infertility irrelevant. Adoption pursued. Chosen family envisioned. Year post vows. Empire unassailable. Voss Shadow Tech revolutionized cybersecurity, thwarting nation hacks. Profits to youth hubs, Asia, Africa. Frost Sovereign docuseries, Netflix captivating millions. Authentic rain, knife authenticity. Shadow Sovereign softened philanthropically. Family joy. Twin girls adopted soul orphanage. Eyes resilient mirroring. Darius uncle spoiling coding kits. Ilara Reginald holidays. Yolof Bulagogi feasts. Liana bedtime tales. Queen outran storms. Ji-hoon watched wonder-eyed. Legacy final reckoning. Min Seok prison breakout smuggled tech. Spite lash. Voss alarms midnight. Liana traced to cell block. He's coming. Multi-agency sting. Digital breadcrumbs to SWAT tunnel. Informants flipped guards. Recaptured hours, life no parole. Soo-jin testified. Ji-yoon witness protection vanished. Video link, face-off. Discarded queen, live void. Defeated stair closed circle. Racing retired mentoring. Hypercar Academy donated. Jeju renewal barefoot. Girls petals. Stars toasting. Mafia order to forever wife. Didn't order, claimed. Tempered love beacon discarded. Pregnancy whispers natural miracle cherished chosen path. Elite bowed. Frost shadow supreme. Besties, if Liana's glow-up touched soul. Join Afro-Korean Stories TV family. Subscribe, lift together. Comments, glow-up X lessons, inner strength learned. Tales inspire, hit like, share friend needing vibe, grow.